It's time now to welcome our first panel discussion of the day, and these experts will talk about digital adoption and transformation of businesses. Let's welcome to the stage our moderator, Dr. Naija Lee, Head of Real Estate Intelligence, Data and Software Services, PropertyGuru Group. We have Anton Warman, creator, entrepreneur, and real estate advisor from the popular YouTube channel, Anton in Japan. David Chong is the Chief Operating Officer of Reda Institute from Malaysia. And lastly, we have Pak Adiguna Sushawan, Chief Marketing Officer and Director of Architecture, Mas Group from Indonesia. Big round of applause, everyone.
Hello, good morning. Yes, yeah. I always very fortunate to have the morning sessions. People are the freshest and most enthusiastic, right? But when I look at today's program, I think everyone will remain enthusiastic for the rest of the day. It's a very exciting program. Now today, we are talking about defining future homes. And I'm very privileged to have three very distinguished guests. They come from very different market segments, have very different expertise. Maybe I let them self-introduce themselves. Starting from the person on my right.
This is working? Yes, it is. Hello, guys. Thank you for coming, and thank you for inviting us, PropertyGuru. My name is Anton. I'm originally from Sweden, and I run a YouTube channel called Anton in Japan. And from the name, you can probably guess that I live and work in Japan, Tokyo. I make content about renovating old houses. So I've tapped into a very unique and very new part of the real estate market in Tokyo, focusing on akiyas and abandoned vacant homes in Tokyo and its surrounding. So I buy up cheap houses, add a lot of value, and then I rent them out as short-term rentals. A strategy that's very common elsewhere in the world, but just for Japan with a culture of tearing down and building brand new, it's kind of mind-blowing to a lot of people. But what I'm doing is very common in the rest of the world.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, PropertyGuru, for inviting me. And on behalf of Reda Institute, just wanted to share a little bit what we do. So originally, I was a lawyer, corporate lawyer. Now I work for a housing advocate organization. REDA it stands for Housing Developers Association of Malaysia, representing more than 1,600 developers. But I'm from the institute, so we have an institute focusing on trainings, right? Where we do study tours, we do conferences. We also do a lot of research on housing in terms of affordability, in terms of abandoned housing, and looking at housing issues, right, in Malaysia and also slightly beyond Malaysia as well. And we also have an education component where we have a master's in real estate development with certain universities. So, we'll be happy to share more about our perspectives. And thank you very much.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Yeah. Let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Adiguna Sosiawan from Mas Group. I'm from Indonesia. And Mas Group itself is a company, a real estate developer company that specializes in millennials housing, Gen Z housing. So right now, maybe I can share about how we can make the house appealing to the younger generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So today we are going to have very, very interesting topics, and each of them have very different expertise of different market segments. And just now when we talk about the economy and how we talk about the trends in Southeast Asia, there are a number of trends in Asia, right? In Japan, you have depopulation, aging population. In Indonesia, you have the growth of this millennials, Gen Z, of a very prominent middle income group. And then in Malaysia, you have both of this, all right? So we're going to have a very interesting talk. So before we start, maybe we talk about future homes. In the future, what homes are going to look like, right? So each of you all are in different markets with very different market conditions, very different culture. Maybe can you share a bit about how, based on your views, what a future housing look like based on your experience?
So me personally, I enjoy a home. I enjoy a house where I can put my own ideas into life. I want to make this house. I don't enjoy a hotel room, so to say. I would like more personality in my home, like where I can choose the wallpaper, I can choose the kitchen, and put more personality into the home. And that's how I envision my future homes. And that's how I think from my culture and from my upbringing, that's what a home should look like. You should not live in a shoebox, but you should create your own shoebox, if that makes sense.
Nice. David, what about you?
Yeah, for me, home, I think, I think it's a basic need, right? In a sense of having shelter in your head, etc. But I think there's also the soft part of it where you feel safe. I think safety is very important in the home. Then versus the other component would be maybe more aspirational, right? Maybe everyone, every couple of years, family grows, etc. Person grows. You want to improve and upgrade your home. So for me, number one is the personal part, is a personal sanctuary. But the second part also, to cater to changing phases and changing needs of a person's life, as you grow older, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Adi. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I believe that the future homes will be the home that support the needs and lifestyle of these homeowners. Yes, because what we saw today, everyone has its own hobbies. Everyone has its own taste of home, just like what Mr. Anton said, right? But I think that the future homes will help the homeowners to be more productive, healthier, to be cost efficient, secure, and of course, great for environment. That's why I believe that the future homes should be easier to maintain. That's why the future home should be smaller. Yes, and the small size doesn't mean that it lost its function. The small house, that means that the future homes has to have multifunction rooms that can transform to fulfill the needs of the homeowners.
Thank you. Okay, now to Anton. I enjoy your videos and
Thank you very much.
I will look through his book. It's really very fascinating, about the IKEA, all this. In Japan, we know the story, there's aging population, there's depopulation, At one point in time, I remember when I'm still an undergrad, buying a Japanese home seems like, wow, that's the way to go. But today is of a very different context. But you managed to turn a risk to an opportunity. Maybe you can share some insights about this journey of yours and then, some of the things that you are doing. Yeah.
So this whole IKEA journey started off as a hobby project to me. I lived in many different big metropolitans in the world, and I loved life in Japan, so I moved to Japan. And I was kind of shocked that you could buy a unit in the biggest city in the world for less than $100,000. That was totally unbelievable. I couldn't even buy a parking lot in my own city, in Stockholm, which is a tiny city in comparison. So I fixed that up, and then I just stumbled upon all these vacant homes and vacant houses that people are. It's a part of the market that no one wants to touch. Japan has this culture of building brand new, and renovation takes a lot more skills and a lot more. You can't put a template on a renovation and build thousands of homes in just a short amount of time. So it takes you cannot scale it in the same way, and I think that's why a lot of Japanese developers has been not looking at that side of the market. It's a blue ocean, as Japanese people would say. But looking at it from a foreigner's perspective, I think we see things that Japanese people don't see. For them, it's been gradually increasing, and it's been like a pain in the back of your head that no one wants to talk about. And that's been gradually growing, that small little thing that no one wants to talk about. So it's just been culminating over the years. And now a lot of Japanese people are seeing it as an opportunity as well. But just because you're Japanese doesn't mean that you know the renovation market. It doesn't mean that you know the real estate market. It's the same in the US, it's the same in Europe. Like if you would ask any Swede about the housing prices or renovation, I'm sure you'll get a pretty bad answer. And it's the same with the normal Japanese person know nothing about the real estate market. It's kind of exclusive to brokers, house makers, and people within the industry. It's very hard to tap into, even if you are Japanese, I think. So this declining population and the amount of vacant houses, it's an issue that there's no set answer to it, and a lot of people in Japan doesn't want to talk about it. And that creates a lot of opportunity. If you come in with a different mindset, with a different culture, and you can add value to these things, if you know where to look and how to create value and create your own opportunities, so to say, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting. Now, David, I think some of the things Anton talked about probably also kind of resonates with you when it comes to how people perceive housing, the lack of information. I understand that Radar, did a lot of things. It's one of the leading organizations in Malaysia trying to drive, more of this education, working with the government hand in hand about housing, affordable housing. Now, based on your opinion, right, based on your experience, what are your views about housing affordability in Malaysia? And maybe you can share some of the insights that Radar is also doing.
Sure. So I think for us, right, we have been doing quite a lot of research on housing affordability. I think one of the things that we found out is that the way you benchmark affordability. So, for instance, right, the median multiple, is commonly used by a lot of organizations, a lot of countries, right? But it may not take into account a lot of components. It's too simplistic. The median multiple is just, it does not take into account, like, for example, how much other loans you have, etc. So back to this, I think affordability is number one. Every person wants to have a home and they want to try to get the best value, they have a visual, on what they perceive their home should be, right? And a certain pricing point as well. But on the other hand as well, you have the people creating the product, right? Managing rising costs, cost management, etc. So I think both components need to meet in the middle. Now, in Malaysia at the moment, the challenge is that, for the mid-segment, right, affordable housing in the mid-segment, it's quite challenging in the sense that there are many homes, but in terms of perhaps the perceived quality, right, and the perceived need, locational, for example, it may not directly meet what people are currently looking for. For instance, let's say if you look at housing in Malaysia, for instance, we look at a benchmark of 500,000 ringgit, we talk about ringgit, someone may say, hey, let me give you a particular housing, but it could be a very far part of the city. So it may be very difficult for them to look for work. They have to commute very long journeys, right? So that also affects the net end of the day, right? What, their life, the quality of life, etc. So I think it's a very difficult balance, right? But we feel that housing affordability in Malaysia is still affordable, and home ownership in Malaysia is actually quite high, about 70+%. It's one of the highest in the world, 75+%. So we feel that there's still room to grow. And I was just talking to Naija that 2 days ago, actually, the Prime Minister of Malaysia just launched the largest housing affordable project in Malaysia in the state of Penang. 35,000 homes for over a period of 15 years. And this with a private developer. So I think, the price point and the quality, you can find the sweet spot provided certain components are done to do cost management. Maybe perhaps we'll speak about it later. I think, for instance, for example, speedy approval process, etc. Yeah. So yeah, I hope this gives a bit of clarification.
Yeah, nice. So when we think about affordable home, I know Adi, your company also do quite a fair bit of that, and you have this Korean concept homes that did very well. I did some research. It was very nice. Maybe from your side, how do you all manage this housing, affordable housing, and then also trying to meet the aspiration of the millennials? Because they are more educated, they are more information savvy. How do you marry these two components?
Okay. Because our research and development has been, longer than it used to. Basically, in Mas Group in Indonesia, we just did it for 1 year, for example. But for Arium Park, we did it twice. We did it for 2 years because we need to know exactly what they want. The younger generation has very much information from the internet, so they have exactly what they want. And Luckily, the home ownership ratio in Indonesia is very high actually. It's around 80%. But there are also 80 million millennials and Gen Z in Indonesia that doesn't have a home yet. So what we do is we're searching what is the most popular culture in Indonesia right now. And luckily for us, the Korean hype in Indonesia is real. It's real. It's starting from the children who watch Tayo. It's starting to the teenagers who want to buy something, a mobile phone from the Korean brands, and the automotive industry, and so on until you want to have something from Korea. And why not you have a Korean homes in Indonesia? And what we saw from Korea, it has a distinctive quality just like a home with technology. That's why our perspective is how to build a home that is affordable, can meet the lifestyle of the Gen Zs and the millennials, but also have a high tech. So that's our formula actually. So we create a home that may be much cheaper than inside the city. So we built it just an hour from the city center, but we can create flexibility for them. We can create bigger facilities. We can create a more secure environment for the children. And we also can create the houses that the design have a great adaptability. That's what we do.
Ah, nice. Now that redirecting the question back to Anton, we talk about affordable homes, especially for younger people. And I think a lot of the people in this audience, they want to invest in property. And then to invest in places like Tokyo seems like always very prohibitive. But you are showing a different opportunity where it's affordable. So what kind of advice will you give to especially young people looking to invest in cities or mature cities? What should they look out for, and what is the mindset they should have?
I think with the virality of the Akia crisis online, I think people just think that you can come to Japan and you can buy any house and turn it into an asset, and then it's going to generate money and a return for you almost by itself. But I would say instead of just buying a house, buy an asset. And how do you define whether that's an asset or not? Like, maybe you can use it for your personal use. Maybe you buy your dream home. Maybe you buy a secondary home. Maybe you buy it as an investment purpose. But in order to do that, you cannot just buy any house. It requires some knowledge of the market. It requires some knowledge about construction, cultural differences as well. It's a big hurdle, I would say. But I would say start small. If you if you can't lose the money, if you can't afford to lose the money, I wouldn't start investing in a different territory. I'm just a DIY guy. I'm not a financial advisor, but I would start small. I would start very small, and then if it goes well, maybe you can take on a different project. But I see you, I feel you, I hear you. I lived in New York for a few years. I lived in Europe, and I know how big of an issue, like a lot of people cannot afford their homes. In my city, Stockholm, over the past 15 years, property prices have risen a few, 500%, sometimes even more in some areas. And I know Australia has a big issue with younger people are being priced out and cannot afford their homes anymore. But then they're seeing that there's a huge opportunity in Japan. So I see why a lot of people see this as a big opportunity. But you gotta be in Japan in order to pull this off, I think. It would be same, like I would never buy a house in Alabama, US, just because it was cheap.
How long do you stay in Japan before you do your first project?
9 months.
Wow.
So I knew I wanted to stay in Japan. I knew I wanted to be in Tokyo, so I moved there first, and then I found this opportunity. And then I went all in on it and turned my hobby into a new profession.
Very nice. You really inspire us a lot for the young audience.
Thank you very much.
Now, David, I understand that the institute or the radar, they also conduct a lot of visits to different countries, learning their affordable housing models, learning new sustainable housing models. Maybe can you share some of the learnings among our audience here?
Sure. Actually, I just, we were in Ho Chi Minh City about 3 weeks plus ago, and previously we also went to Singapore to look at the HDB model and also to Hong Kong, etc. as well. So just to share a little bit, I think Nigel and the panel, I think today about defining future homes, right? I mean, just a few points that Adi mentioned just now, I'd just like to add on a little bit if I could. So I think in Malaysia right now, for instance, right, we have this different balances that you need to balance. At one stage, right, if you build outside, further out from the city, you may get, like he said, Adi was saying, a bigger house, right, a bigger home, right, better facilities, etc. However, you may lose certain things. For instance, you have to commute a bit longer, etc. Right? So I think this is a difficult balance, and perhaps the solution could be in different phases of life. For instance, say when a person's single or working in the city, etc., they may want to work, city has the family grow, they may want to move outside. So I think this defining future homes is, I think the house has to be flexible and adaptable over time. And one key component that we found from some of our visits, for instance, was that, one, we feel that housing stock, right, let's say affordable housing stock, especially in the heart of the city, should not be sold. So if it's government social affordable housing, the stock should be kept by the government, right? Because if you keep selling land, over time, you keep building outwards to the city. So people that may need, to work near the city, they may lose that access. Now, talking back to your question here, Nigel, about the different cities, I think Singapore is always the benchmark, the highest benchmark when we talk about affordable homes, when we look at HDB, right? So we had the $1 million HDB, and HDB, we visited them several times. Then every few years when we visit back, right, they're always ahead of the curve, right, in the ASEAN sector. But, for instance, now, they were sharing that they were building homes near the sea, reclaimed land, etc., jogging paths that, connected to a lot of facilities. So I think HDB is the benchmark for most cities that we go to. However, the issues with the other cities, right, that want to achieve similar affordable housing like Singapore would be about cost management. I think I was talking to Nigel just before we came in that a lot of people may not realize that HDB actually subsidizes a huge component. I think in 2023, the subsidy is about about $6 billion in 2023. The year before, about 5+ billion Sing dollar. The year before, 21 is about 4 billion. So I think when we speak to a lot of people in Malaysia as well, people doing affordable housing, they were saying that they wish they had such budgets as well, right? So perhaps, I think looking at that, the different cities also want to model Singapore, but always about the cost. And perhaps in the near future, the different structure, financial model and structure could be in place. For instance, right, the Penang model that we shared 2 days ago, Prime Minister launched a big project in Penang State. But it's developed by a private developer, Skyworld. I'm not promoting it, but it's factual. Yeah? So I think the model has to be right, whereby the people buying the homes get what they want, right? A nice home at a pretty good price that they feel that is good value, versus how does the people creating the product control their costs. So I think it lies in two things. One, speedier approval processes, right? Speedier approval process. Number two, perhaps some for construction technology like they employ in Singapore as well. Yeah. So yeah.
Maybe I just want to tap your mind a bit more. What are the buyers looking out for? Because from some of the analysis that we did, people tend to look for near to their job centers, or but they don't, in Malaysia, they don't seem to be want to live near MRT station, which is a bit different. Yeah.
Okay, I think this one is about phases of life, right? So I think right now, if let's say a person in Malaysia, typically, if it's a family with children, etc., they may want a bit more space. So they may want to move outside the city. They may not mind traveling on the road, perhaps even an hour or slightly more than an hour and a half to get to their place of work. So in a sense, it's a sacrifice. Yeah. So perhaps it's different phases of life. But I think for the younger people, right, younger working professionals, I think they would like city center location or very near transport hub. However, the challenge is that, perhaps in different cities as well. For instance, we were in Ho Chi Minh City recently, and, their MRT, LRT is not here yet, So perhaps in different cities, we can't compare apple to apple. It so depends a lot. So Malaysia, our infrastructure, we have some form of public transport infrastructure, but may not be as advanced as, say, Hong Kong or Singapore. Hence, not all areas are very connected. So perhaps that's one challenge why not so many developments could be transit-oriented.
I see.
In that sense, Nigeria. Yeah.
So, Adi, in Indonesia, I understand that the market is very diverse. Yeah, you have the very sophisticated. Then you have also the other segments of the markets. So when you are coming up with a particular product, right, you think about a community. It needs to be healthy. It needs to have all these attributes. From a very design perspective, right? What are the kind of things that goes into your mind? Because we talk about cost management, and then we still need to make a profit out of this. How do you manage these commercial objectives and social objectives together?
Okay, I think it has to do with two things. The first one is maybe the technology, how we build the house, because the technology is evolving every single day. In Indonesia, actually, we have sometimes prefab housing that we can build as fast as possible, but it's not popular yet. But I think in the future, this technology will help us to cut the cost. Because in Indonesia, the housing price inside the city and outside the city is very, very diverse. So it can be 4 times much more expensive than in the city. So what we do in Mas Group is we want to be the middle ground here. Because as Mr. David already said that maybe the infrastructure is an issue here. Because in Indonesia, it's very unique, but it is the truth. There's a lot of people who really want to commute from their home to the city center in Jakarta 5 hours a day. Can you imagine? 5 hours a day. So they're willing to get the better job for them. But I think the problem here, there is no middle ground. So I think the house inside the city is too expensive. But the house outside the city, they tend to have lack of quality, lack of concept, and maybe lack of the things that Gen Z like, sustainability. So that's why Mas Group want to be the part of that area. So when we think about our products, we no longer want to sell it as a housing development. Rather, we prefer to sell it as a lifestyle development. So the first thing when you see our project, you may not see the house because the house is just an instrument. What we want to sell is when you be a part of our community, you'll be a part of a healthy community. You'll be a part of the modern community. So what we do is we just have one kind of plot length. After the research, we decided 5.5 meters times 14 is the best for Indonesian right now. So it has flexibility. As I talk about the landed housing, I think growing house is one of the best thing ever happened in Indonesia. Because when we sell the house as it looks, it has to be more expensive. So the younger generation doesn't need that at the time. So we sell it maybe for the smaller house, only 1 bedroom. But this 1 bedroom has the structure to be evolved vertically into the 3-story homes. And maybe from the 1 bedroom, it can be transformed into 5 bedroom according to their needs. Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah.
Nice. So maybe to dwell one deeper into the question, right? Because your concepts are very new, and sometimes you also need to educate the consumer. Yeah. How do you do that? I mean, I understand you did a lot of social media. How effective is that? And what are the new trends you are seeing in Indonesia?
Yeah. Actually, back in COVID era, me and my wife, we started a YouTube channel. Not as big as Anton, but it helped us quite a lot with the sales right there. Because, when we want to influence house, we have to be the target market. So I start to tour to a lot of Indonesian property development from my friends. So we saw that maybe when you just sell the house itself, the house is just the house. It has no story. It has no uniqueness. It has no the trigger, the emotion that makes people want to buy the house. But when we sell the house, starting from the story itself, how the house will be evolving in the next 30 years, how the house will be future-proof, how the house will be the place where the children grows, when they can learn safely, securely in the secure environment, then it's easier to convince them to buy the house. So in our case, in RM Park, we want to create the story about a Korean dreams where people can live healthier with a lot of facilities that they cannot get outside RM Park. So we can create the housing. At first, we have 60% of the products will be the one-story houses, but because we have the adaptability from the same land plot, now we sell the three-story house even more.
Ah, nice, nice. Anton, I think you also you are very experienced in YouTube. You set up your YouTube channel. Now there's so many social media outlets, right? How do you manage to stand out? Or what's your strategy, especially when you want to convey the message about future living, how it should be done, how it can be done? Because yours is pretty revolutionary in terms of the Japanese culture where they buy a new house and so on.
I think it's about what do you want to convey, and then you package it in a 60-second video with a really strong hook in the beginning. So, for example, what's your video? Let me give you some advice.
Sorry?
What's your video about?
Actually, we're just home touring. We pretend to be the consumer, but it's actually our houses.
And you're making long-form content, or you're making shorts?
Yes. Right now, we don't usually use YouTube videos anymore because, our video usually long. It's about 20 minutes. And right now, we just make a highlight in the Reels or TikTok just for 1.5 minutes.
So I would just go shorts if I were you.
Yeah.
Because you'll reach millions of people with like this amount of work.
Yeah.
And then people will be funneled into your living.
Yeah, I know, because maybe when we put the shorter video, maybe the algorithm will help us to grow even more, right? Because the exposure of the content itself will be much bigger than that.
Yeah. Was that an answer to your question? Or?
Thanks for helping me moderate. Yeah. But so it's very interesting. When I was looking at your YouTube channels about the IKEAs and etc., there will be comments like, "Oh, are you sure?" How do you deal with those things?
I mean, it's just. First of all, I'm doing what I love doing. I love making content and I love creating. I think it's very similar. Like making a video is like renovating a house. Like you have to have a vision for the final project, and you have to have a vision for the video. It needs to be a strong hook in the beginning. It needs to be a story, and then you wrap it in the end. And building a house, it's just that the amount of time it takes to renovate a house is. It sometimes takes a year, and making a good video sometimes takes you a week or a month if you're working really, really well on it. So I think it's about being you and being able to stand behind what you're putting out there. So if it wasn't me and if it didn't align with my values, I don't think I could make a strong and impactful video about something that I don't believe in.
I see. And that's how you convince your audience about how can be done, how it can be done actually because of your authenticity.
I think that's a big part of it. And it's not all about financial gain as well. I'm not trying to sell people. I'm not a broker. And I think that shines through. Because most of the people who are making similar content as me is more about, hey, look at this house.
Right.
Now contact me in the form below and I'll sell you a service. And I don't really sell my viewers any service at all.
Right.
Other than my free videos and my media, like my book that I wrote, or if they're coming to Tokyo, they can stay in my houses. But I'm not selling them. I'm selling them education in how to go and do it on their own.
David, in your role, right, I mean, you also has to deal with quite a fair bit of communication, I mean, educating the developers, educating consumers, and managing different stakeholders. and then we see the rise of this millennials, Gen Z. How do you see the role as an association change? How has the communication changed over these years?
Thank you, Nigel. I think that's a very interesting question. I think a little bit from what Anton is saying. I think the people creating the product, say the property developers, right, from the institute's perspective, we see a rise in consumer demand, demanding what they want, right, and also voicing out what they want. And I think social media is leveling that quite a bit. So I think perhaps, for example, even complaints, right? If let's say you buy a new house or your house, you have something leaking and someone is not attending to it, you may post it out there on social media, etc. And I think, for example, the product creators, the developers, they are very conscious about this as well. So my point here is that they are more listening deeper into what the consumer is looking for, rather than just selling something, right? So I think we see a rise in that, Nigeria, and also consumer protection in Malaysia, for example, on what they expect. I think the millennials, etc., they expect a little bit more, and they're not shy to convey it out what they want. So I think the developers also are taking into account all these components. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So just a last question to wrap things up, right? As you say, we have to wrap things up with a
Yes.
nice cook. So in the future, right, what do you hope, what is the kind of technology, or what do you hope the governments or the whole ecosystem will change towards to enable healthy future housing to be more available or widely available to everyone? What will you hope that the thing that will change or the thing that will come about?
After living in Japan for a substantial amount of time, I hope that the preference for brand new is going to go away. I think from a sustainability perspective and from a perspective of valuing things that are older, I just talked to my Japanese friends and they all want brand new housing. And I really don't understand that. And for me, I hope that is going to go away and that people will want to create their own homes that they can live in for a very long time.
Nice. David, what about you?
I think my perspective for future house, a future home, right? I think in Malaysia particularly, I think everybody aspires to have a very high quality, not to say luxury, but high quality home that can last them for a very long time. So I think that's my hope as well, that through technology, through more consciousness, perhaps a better quality homes, right? They can last a longer time. And also, taking into account the phases of a person's life, the adaptability, like as Adi was mentioning, right? Different phases of life, we need some different adaptability. Do you move out directly, or like he's mentioned, perhaps a different type of layout where it's a little bit more flexible, right? Where you maybe have a bigger space, but in between you don't need it, you may rent it out, but over time you may take it back. So I think that's for me, yeah. For high quality homes, more flexible phases to take into account your different phases of life.
Okay, for me, for my government especially, we hope that we can collaborate to make a new township that easy for the millennials, because the township itself has to be affordable. So that's why there has to be a collaboration between the developers and the government. In Indonesia, actually, there are a lot of private township and they succeed. But we need it more because, in Java, there are 150 million people live there, when Java only consists of 7% of Indonesia. Can you imagine if we can create another private township with the same quality as in Java? It will be great for our future. And I believe also the most important thing right now is to make eco-friendly materials and maybe sustainable materials as mainstream as fast as possible, because unfortunately right now the reality is in Indonesia sustainable building is still a luxury, so people have much more thing to think before they choose a home with sustainable living. But when it becomes mainstream, I believe that everyone, especially the younger generation, will go for that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Can I add one last thing?
Sure.
There are two things that I would like in my future home, and that's a bright room with a lot of sunlight and a fantastic kitchen. If you wake up with good sunlight and a nice looking kitchen, that's a done home for me.
Yeah, and then I will add what my colleague will say, double tempered, yeah, glasses for the windows so that, the heat leakage is not that much, and then, you save electricity. So, yeah, okay. Thank you very much for all your inputs. I think the audience greatly benefit from your advice, and thanks everyone for continue to be engaged. I think you all will be very engaged in the subsequent programs. Thank you everyone.
Thank you very much.